guys, Tarke here, and today I want to talk all about the new league, Delirium League. We have some very interesting things to talk about. I've given it a brief breakdown with a synopsis, the things I like, the things which are a bit lame, and then we'll just talk a bit generally towards the end and give some advice on maybe things to think about into Delirium League. But just to summarize, so the way this league will function is you'll encounter a shattered mirror in all zones, similar to a breach portal. When you walk through the mirror, you'll activate a timed delirium encounter, as you can see in the gameplay here. Fog will then spread outwards, infecting existing enemies, while new enemies spawn from the mists. Eventually, the fog will dissipate and the zone you're in will return to normal. These are timed events. We don't know how long exactly. I'd imagine a minute or so. During these events, you'll collect delirium orbs that are used to add influence to maps. These special maps will not be timed, will have permanent delirium influence, and drop splinters towards the final Simulacrum boss event. For the sake of this, I will refer to the encounters as encounters and the untimed delirium maps as maps going forward. Okay. So, maps not timed, encounters are timed, and apparently it'll be 1 minute, according to what I'm hearing in chat. The Simulacrum boss, which again you encountered by collecting the splinters that only drop from the maps, will have his own set of uniques, one for each armor slot. These items won't have any inherent synergy with one another, but do share a visual theme for players who want to use skin transfers to mirror the new endgame boss's visuals. The main reward of this league is the new cluster jewel system. Cluster jewels apparently drop from any monster inside a delirium event or map. According to Bex on Reddit, she said they drop from monsters within the delirium, it seems. So not just delirium monsters, but not outside of the delirium mist. So for example, if you entered a map, didn't kill any monsters, started the event, and like a little goat guy got infected, the goat guy could drop it. It's not like Blight, for example, where the Blight uniques only drop from the spore. These jewels should be quite obtainable, and they should be fairly common. So, now that we've kind of explained how the league will function, let's get into the things that I really like about this league. So, no new NPCs in our hideout. The last few leagues have just kept throwing NPC after NPC at us. I really like the fact that this is just gameplay that occurs naturally when you're out in zones, out in maps, and we don't have to have another person to shove in our hideout, clustering things up. 4 new skills and 3 new support gems. Without trying them myself, I cannot guarantee how viable they will be, but they all seem fairly unique. Blade skills will also offer support to animate weapon with the new blade functionality. One of the new skills detonates blades that are created from blade abilities like Blade Vortex, Blade Fall, and you can actually now use the blades created by those abilities to summon animate weapons. So that's just kind of cool. One thing I really enjoy about this league though, Delirium League has a clear progression and gameplay loop. You run the encounters, collect the orbs to run the maps, collect the splinters that drop from maps, and then you get to the boss fight in the Simulacrum. This gameplay loop also supports multiple playstyle types. So if you're just a casual player who just enjoys leveling builds, doing a little bit of mapping, and then starting again from scratch, you'll be naturally collecting the orbs that you could then sell to the mappers. If you're someone who likes to really juice up all of your maps, go super crazy, you're going to be wanting to buy as many of these orbs as possible, so you can make really big, tasty maps. And then you might not want to run the bosses, so those juiced up map players will then sell their splinters onto the bosses, who will then make their money selling the unique items. So I really like that there's something for everyone to enjoy. And also crafters will get a lot out of this league from crafting the new cluster jewels because they are rollable and modifiable. So nearly every single player will receive something new and exciting in this league, which is great. Delirium also has a very coherent and uniform art style that's fairly distinct from previous leagues. People used to joke around that every league will be a purple league. They've gotten away from that a little bit now, but this whole like mist and grey, it isn't really something we've seen before, so I really like it from that point of view. Apparently, Delirium will meaningfully enhance all previous league mechanics, such as incursions, syndicate, breach, essence, etc. So if you're just in a map and you start an encounter and the mist spread out, all of those other events will get substantially more rewarding and substantially more difficult. True risk-reward gameplay is always great. If you bite off more than you can chew, you can always pull back, let the encounter end, and then the map will return back to normal. So you won't be bricking any of your maps or zones. You can just hide for a bit and let things go back to normal. Obviously, if you overjuiced a map using too many orbs and you couldn't run it, that would be bricked. Maybe you'd have to sell it to get someone else to come in and clear the rest of the map for you. I don't know. Alongside this, the Temple of Atsuatl and Val side areas will also be receiving buffs as core mechanics in 3.10. They should apparently be much more rewarding, and Val side areas will now have rare mods on them. Their bosses will be much tankier, and the loot should hopefully be quite rewarding, so that'd be great. Also, the new cluster duel system could potentially fill in the weaknesses of many existing builds that currently have to spend exorbitant amounts of skill points traveling the skill tree to plug up defenses. Perhaps we'll finally be unchained from the Cyan life wheel. One thing I said that I really want to see improved in this patch was defensive options, and I specifically mentioned the top right part of the tree. I play a lot of builds in that section. I nearly always end up going to Cyan life, going to Marauder life. Maybe if we can get interesting defensive nodes on these cluster jewels, rather than traveling all over to the tree, you'll specialize more into one area of the tree and then using one or two cluster jewel areas and getting your defenses that way. I'd also just briefly recommend on that point, I wouldn't rely too much on these jewels for your league starter build, but perhaps if you planned your build with only like 80 points and it functions with 80 points, you then have the points around to, you know, be a bit more creative with. Just finally on that note, a small, medium, and large cluster jewel, they link together, that's how they spread outwards, will be roughly 20-ish points. So don't go planning to use 3 different groups, because that would be 60 points. So expect 1 for most builds, 2 for some builds. Sorry. One thing which is also great, the uniques we've seen from the final boss both look very powerful, which bodes well for build creation. It seems like we're going to have lots of very interesting, unique builds with all these new options and tools we have available to us. We're also seeing improvements to the Endgame Atlas system. Conqueror spawns are now deterministic, and their progress is displayed visually with a handy sidebar on the Atlas. GGG is also planning to introduce extra incentives for doing high awakening levels, and you can see these bars here. So as you're going through, you've got clear progress, you always know exactly where you're at. Very big improvement, for which is something that we really wanted. Finally, when it comes to things that I really like about this league, Metamorph is going core. I was a big fan of Metamorph as a mechanic. We don't have the full details, but Ziggy did mention that it will be going core. I'm sure we'll receive news in the next couple of days, and we'll have the full details on how exactly Tane will function staying, you know, in the game. Getting into things which are a little bit lame, things I'm not super crazy about. While the Delirium fog effects looks very cool, I worry we may have some issues with limiting the visibility of ground effects. You can kind of see it here, that while it's not too intrusive, stuff like rocks on the floor, which will you accidentally run into something you can't move over, could get you killed in hardcore, seeing detonate corpses, you'll still be able to see through it, but anything which limits ground visibility, especially in a hardcore environment, is very rippy. The new cluster passives will cause many headaches short-term for players, and for both content/build creators long term. Overall, I do think they'll make an excellent addition to the game, but I'm really not looking forward to the constant questions these will cause. We could also see a meta forming around builds that don't require many skill points, so you see lots of people feeling like they have to play builds like Herald of Agony, or minion builds in general, since they're pretty well known for not needing that many skill points to function. One thing I also should mention when it comes to the fog effects, apparently Bex said on Reddit that these fog effects are using new tech from PoE 2, so they shouldn't be causing lag. Maybe on some systems you may have some FPS issues, but apparently they shouldn't cause issues there. There's also been no mention of ascendancy changes. If they were planning to do significant ascendancy reworks or changes, they probably would have mentioned it. We may still see some improvements, hopefully, to Scion, since there'll be a lot of extra attention on Scion this league, with all of the new duel excitement. So hopefully Scion does receive a little bit of quality of life. But even if it isn't improved, you'll still see plenty more Scions than you normally do, because you'll want to use the new duel system. Due to the timed nature of the encounters of 1 minute, players may feel forced into playing speed clear builds. One thing which was actually really nice about Metamorph is I never felt like my build couldn't do the Metamorph. As long as I had a well-rounded character, it didn't matter if I killed the Metamorph in 10 seconds, 1 second, or 100 seconds. You're not going to be playing super slow builds, and since in 3.9 we saw the massive boost to Monster Life, people generally making slightly slower characters, if we see more buffs to enemy life, enemy defenses, which, to be honest, I would kind of like. We might have some issues with the time nature. Then again, 1 minute, it's not super timed, but just be aware of it. This does also look like this could be yet another Headhunter League, due to the fact that we're getting loads of extra monsters spawning in. It is timed. Headhunter synergy, it's kind of a thing there. And finally, and this is very much just a nitpick, the supporter packs, in my opinion, while they're cool, they're not really what I wanted. I can just show them briefly here. We have the Fate Weaver and the Darkseer. Of the two, the Darkseer is my favorite, so I'll start with this one. It does remind me quite a lot of the Miracle armor set, which is an armor set I really do love. I'm a big fan of the chest piece. I'm not that crazy on the hood. I kind of wish we had an option to turn the rune on and off. The portal is great, though. I do love the portal. So continue to get the portal and just the $30 thing. I think it's worth. This is definitely the one I would go for out of the two. The only reason I'm not super excited about it is it does remind me a lot of the Miracle set, and we do just have a lot of just black and grey sets in general pre-existing, which means it doesn't feel that special, but at the same time it will mix and match with other sets quite well, so it's like a pro and a con there. And then the Fate Weaver set is a very unique set. I really like the silhouette of the set. The helmet is interesting. The cloak is very interesting. Saying that, however, the textures, it's got a lot going on. Like, the helmet's got this weird, almost like crumpled, burnt skin kind of look. On the chest and on the face, it kind of seems like burnt leather or burnt skin. And there's just so much going on that it just looks like some of these textures just look a little bit messy. It's impressive, the new stuff we can do with the tech that we didn't have. Like, the armor set's getting more and more detailed, which I love. But I do feel like this might be slightly over-designed, just in its textures. Saying that, though, it does look great. I love the silhouette of it. I can completely understand why someone would love this set. But for me personally, sorry, Belial, when watching that, it's not quite for me, but I can understand why some people would like it. It's also one of those things, much like we've had a lot of black and grey sets, we've also had a lot of white and gold sets, so it doesn't feel too unique there. I'm still holding out hope that we will receive a more verdant-themed natural set, but anyway. I'm Tarke. Delirium League is looking very exciting. and I'm really looking forward to making some interesting builds for you all. One thing I should also mention is we're going to be doing a Bay class this Saturday coming. I'll leave a timer down below. We'll be joined by Ziggy D, Rise QT, Octavian, and Noogie, and we'll be giving our full rundown of this, so make sure you don't miss that out. And also, finally, I have started a Patreon, and if you are a $10 supporter on my Patreon, once a month you can send me any build and I will do a build review. And considering we have these crazy new cluster jewels and everyone's builds are going to be really mad and you don't know how to do them, well, if you want some help with that, I can hook you up. I will be doing starter builds as per usual, and all of that good stuff. And I will try and have all of my starter builds for 3.10 have about 20-ish points flex on them, so you can mess around with the new cluster jewels. Anyway, I'm Tarke. Have a good day. Bye-bye.